Okay, so in our generation, we have access to a lot more information.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of peers, acquaintances, like we're starting to do the work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
correct.
a lot of us come from a Caribbean household.
Yes.
And I noticed that a lot of us still have parent hurt.
Yes.
Of how they grew up. They may have a lot of resentment towards their parents.
Agreed.
Right?
Yep.
And I notice, although they're doing the work, they're still seeking that validation or
Yes.
that closure from their parents.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
I'm so happy you brought that up, because that has been one of the number one, like as I try to keep statistics of like some of the issues that are present or that are presenting concerns amongst my clients. Cause again, 99.9% of my clientele is Black, right? Mm-hmm. And that's one of the number one issues that I've seen.
Welcome back to another episode of the Black is the New Rich podcast. If this is your first time, I'm your host, Corey Cash. And today we got a special guest that's here for the second time. And today we're going to talk about mental health and like the stigmas around it. But if you missed the first episode that this brother was on, can you please introduce yourself?
Yes. Thank you, Brother Corey. So my name is David Grant. I am a current PhD student in the School of Public Health Sciences at the University of Waterloo. I'm trained as a social worker and I wear different hats. I write legal reports as a legal social worker. I do have my own private psychotherapy practice and counseling practice where I also do educational lectures on a variety of topics related to African people, from economics to African psychology and spirituality. And, you know, I'm just for the people, about the people, and my priority is the people. So, you know, it's a beauty to be on a Black is New Rich podcast, which the priority is aligned with mine. So
100%.
Thank you, Brother Corey, for having me back again.
No problem. No problem. So today we're going to talk about mental health.
Yes.
And these days, mental health is sometimes it seems to be a buzzword in social media, right?
Yep.
And I have to admit, like growing up, I've had different like views on mental health and depression and anxiety, like because I feel like I've when I played sports, so I grew up in a very competitive environment.
So did I. Yep.
So sometimes when I was younger, I used to think of mental health. I felt like I was a little bit insensitive.
Okay.
You know, because I just didn't understand. It was just like, if you're feeling a way, then do something about it. Get over it.
Exactly.
Come on.
Yeah.
You know, so, but now as I get older, I can be more compassionate to what people are going through.
Yes.
And as I get older, I'm trying to understand more what people are going through.
Yes.
So do you have to say anything about that?
Yes. So, great that you talked about that. And, you know, I think, you know, your perception on mental health, let's say growing up, was not that much different than, let's say, I would say in some cases mine in one capacity, but, you know, on the other capacity, of course, I understood that if people are struggling and it seems like no matter what they do, they can't seem to get out of it behaviorally, emotionally, psychologically, I want to know more about that. So I was almost stuck in between the two, if that makes sense. So, you know, similar to you, but with that nuance, you know, because I also played sports and you learn this grit of, you know, whether it's playing football, whether it's running track, whether it's playing basketball, you learn this self-discipline. And it's like, no, you just got to work through it. The thing is, to your earlier point about mental health being the new buzzword, in the way I look at it, being the new socially acceptable status symbol, right? Where being ill, anxious, depressed, traumatized is almost the new socially ascribed or prescribed status symbol that people now use. Young people that I'm seeing in my practice use as a way of relating to other young people.
Did you know that the Black dollar leaves the community within 6 minutes? That's why we are excited to introduce the new Black is the New Rich app, designed for the Black community to be more intentional about where we spend our dollar. The directory consists of mostly financial services like real estate agents, financial advisors, tax consultants, mortgage agents, videographers, photographers, and many more. With our app, you can easily find and connect with quality services that are owned by Black entrepreneurs. And to ensure the integrity of the service on our app, all directory members are held accountable if they receive multiple bad reviews. Our mission is to circulate the dollar and provide quality services to our community. Download the Black is the New Rich app today and start investing in your community.
Right?
So do you feel like,
yeah.
sorry.
Go ahead,
do you
man.
feel like, because it's so in our face in social media, do you feel that, and I don't want to be insensitive. I just want clarification.
Yeah.
Is that, do you feel it could be used as an excuse to not do the work?
100%. See, anything can be used as an excuse. Doesn't take away from the fact that it still has real components.
Fair.
So somebody, like I've seen people, for instance, when I used to work in a specific, like Black specific clinic, it's called the Substance Abuse Program for African, Caribbean, and Canadian Youth. So SAPACY. I would see real cases, and I use that in quotes, of people who suffered from anxiety disorders where it was so debilitating they couldn't hold down a job.
Okay.
They couldn't focus in school. They couldn't sit without trembling because they were so explicitly anxious. So the same thing with people who had depression, people who had schizophrenia. So there is a realness to it, right?
Yes.
And I have helped treat those real issues.
Yes.
But to the point about mental health being a buzzword, I think my main issue with people coming out and talking about their mental health struggles is that they are taking a real phenomenon and in many cases watering it down. And as you said, in some ways using it as an excuse to justify bad behavior. You can have mental health issues and still be a jerk.
Yeah.
You can, I just want to make that clear. You can have struggles with your mental health and still be a jerk.
Yeah.
The two can exist independently.
Yes.
It's not, this is happening because I have mental health issues.
That should be excused.
That should be excused. It's like, no, you can be depressed,
but
I still hold you accountable for your behavior.
Yes.
But to the other point about it being a social status symbol now, I think the main issue with young people, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, it's very great that young people are coming out and feeling more comfortable talking about what's happening psychologically and even physically. On the flip side, though, I think we're creating an environment where young people are not being taught resilience.
Yes.
Right? That they are not being taught to have that grit, to persevere through trials and tribulations. So before, when we would have stress related to school or stress related to sports, naturally you have anxiety.
Yeah.
Before an event, you have anxiety. So mental health is not a new phenomenon. You have anxiety because you're like, how am I going to perform? Am I going to be the best that I'm going to be? But you found ways to self-regulate and to cope through those times of distress.
Yes.
When you experience depression, for instance, related to just your environmental circumstances, you're experiencing low motivation, inability to feel pleasure, sleep disturbances, all these respective symptoms, those are naturally a part of the human experience. The challenge, though, in today's age is they use that and they now use it to relate to one another because it's become the new social symbol. So the way I look at it is, unfortunately, we have two polarizing phenomenons coexisting.
Yeah.
And what we don't want to do is throw away the baby with the bathwater. We don't want to say there's no existence of mental health issues.
Yeah.
Everybody just needs to get it together, which is what some of these old school people say.
Yeah.
And some of the old school people have real mental illnesses.
Yes,
but on the flip side, we also don't want to say everything's a mental health crisis. No, sometimes you just need to develop a stronger backbone.
Yeah.
So I'll leave that out there.
Okay, cool.
I hope that clarifies your piece.
Yeah, no, 100%. So growing up in high school, we had like guidance counselors and stuff like that. But I don't ever remember any of the guidance counselors being Black, right? So for me personally, I never felt that was an option to go talk to a guidance counselor.
Yes.
So how important is cultural competence?
Okay. So when you say cultural competence, cultural competence is more so related to how you do the work and making sure that it's grounded in, I guess, competencies that are culturally based, right? So when you're saying that, that's what I'm thinking about. Are you talking about more so representation?
Yeah, representation.
Got it.
Okay.
Excuse me. I just wanted to make sure and clarify. So how important is representation in general, or particularly related to like mental health struggles?
Mental health struggles.
Excellent. It is important. I would say it is the first step.
Okay.
It is the first step, but it's not the only step.
Okay.
I think people sometimes get caught up in it being the first and only step. Now, you have the detractors who will say, no, representation doesn't matter. It's just about how good the person is. That's totally incorrect.
Okay.
Sometimes the first step to making somebody feel comfortable expressing themselves, disclosing their internal struggles, is having somebody that looks like them.
Mm-hmm.
But why I say it's not the only step is because, unfortunately, you have some people who are white on the inside, black on the outside. We have some Negropeans running around here, right? So unfortunately, we have to discern.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, people have had
Like the
really bad
self-hatred.
experiences with some self-hating Negroes,
Yeah.
right? And I'm gonna call them Negroes. They're not fully developed black people.
Yeah.
So with that being said, it's the first step.
Yeah.
We don't throw away the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
We need black guidance counselors. We need black school psychologists. We need black school social workers in the educational realm.
Yeah.
But we need conscious black guidance counselors, conscious black school social workers, and the list goes on.
Okay.
When I say conscious, what I mean is people who understand the nuances related to how our people present mental health issues, how we understand it, how our families understand it, how our cultures understand it. You use language that resonates with people and their experience. Mm-hmm. That is what we need. So when you see the person, the young black student is going to say, okay, I'm feeling comfortable. I'm going to open up. They're hoping that the response is culturally grounded. Mm-hmm. That's what we need. And to be clear, guidance counselors you can go to about your school's issues and, some of your mental health struggles, but particularly for mental health struggles, you'll want to go more so to the school social workers and school psychologists. So anybody who's watching, guidance counselors are just to help guide you along the educational trajectory, teach you about your career options, your university and college options. But if you want particularly mental health related assistance, go to the school social worker. School psychologists are more so about assessments. Your school social worker is your best bet, and maybe if the school has it, a clinical psychologist. Sometimes some schools have that.
Fair.
Yeah. So I just want to clarify for the viewers.
Fair. Okay. So growing up,
Okay.
obviously I just mentioned the sports background, being with my boys.
Of course.
We didn't really talk about our feelings.
Yes.
Especially when we were hurt.
Yes.
Maybe some things were going on at home.
Yes.
It was always be tough, be tough, be tough. And
Yes.
that's how we were raised, right?
Yes.
So the words like anxiety and depression weren't familiar to us growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So can you help me understand or give me a definition to what is anxiety?
Excellent. So very good question. Anxiety can be defined in various ways. On one hand, anxiety can be fear of the unknown.
Okay.
So it's having a fear of something that you have not yet seen and are not sure if it's going to come about. It's just fear of this enigma, right? This mystery.
Okay.
And it's experiencing all the related sensations associated with this fear. So body shakes, various thoughts racing through your head, an uncomfortability, just
Stuff that hasn't happened?
that hasn't happened because you're trying to anticipate what may happen, but it's unknown.
Okay.
So there's that. There is anxiety related to perceiving a situation being threatening, right? So feeling that the way a situation occurs, it's somehow threatening, even if it's not life-threatening, threatening to your social status, threatening to your physical safety, threatening to your emotional safety. So someone may have anxiety about having a conversation with a friend about telling them that their restaurant's not good. They're fearful that this may be an emotionally threatening situation because they don't know how that person's going to respond. So it aligns again back with the first definition, fear of the unknown.
Yes.
So, and then anxiety also comes about with feeling overwhelmed, right? So feeling like you don't know how to manage all of these respective issues, which again aligns with the original piece. You're trying to anticipate how you're going to deal with these issues, but you don't know.
Okay.
So basically, as we can see, the common denominator is fear of the unknown. And those are the different layers of what is unknown. Is the situation threatening? Is the situation manageable? So that is essentially what anxiety is.
How do we battle anxiety on our own?
First step is self-regulation.
Okay. And what do you mean by that?
Excellent. Self-regulation means your ability to cope with a variety of different emotions, particularly distressing emotions.
Okay.
Some therapists, some psychologists, psychiatrists, etc., call these emotions negative emotions.
Okay.
In my opinion, I don't know what's so negative about anger. I don't know what's so negative about disappointment.
It's human experience.
It's human experience. It's a helpful emotion in many ways, because it gives you an indication of how a situation is affecting you and what you need to do about it. So in terms of how we battle it, self-regulation is the first and foremost important piece, because anxiety induces a whole bunch of respective thoughts ruminating in your mind. It creates a sort of discomfort in your psyche, in your inner spirit. But you can't think clearly until you have brought your body to a sense of equilibrium, right? Homeostasis. Homeostasis is basically when your body and your internal chemical balance is in balance, right? So when you are able to self-regulate by deep breathing, self-regulate by going to the gym, self-regulate by going for a walk, doing a meditation, whatever it is. Trying to bring your body back to that sense of peace. Because when you're anxious, your body's heightened. Your cortisol levels are coming out. Through your cortisol levels are rising internally, right? Your body is basically responding as if it's in full on distress. In order to tell your body, no, we can get through this, you have to self-regulate. You have to talk to your body by way of the self-regulation exercises.
So what are some practical ways? Is it like meditation? Is it breathing?
Exactly. What, like the early ones I mentioned. So deep breathing, I think is the biggest one. It's the most underrated one. People oftentimes say, I've tried to deep breathe. It doesn't work. And then I ask them, I've seen this in session. Let me see that. That's not deep breathing. I always like to relate it back to your example with sports. If you are feeling nerves, you're about to run a 200-meter dash. And you're anxious because the person next to you won the championship last year. You can't self-regulate by way of just, No, what do you have to do? Go for a walk. Get your head in the game. Take some deep diaphragmatic breaths and exhale to get your body a bit looser, because when we get anxious, we get tense. So that is a practical way. If we think about it from a sports perspective, doing those deep breaths, sometimes all you need is 3 deep, slow breaths. That's a practical way. I've seen it in session. People who are irate, I say, let's stop, take 3 deep breaths. Before they did that, I asked them to rate their anxiety on a scale of 0 to 10, 10 being the highest, 0 being the lowest. They were at a 30, right? You get them to do those 3 deep breaths, they're at about a 6. And this is no exaggeration. I asked them, how you feeling? You can just see clinically, they're more relaxed. They're like, wow, that's actually helpful. And I looked and I said, and I timed it. That was 30 seconds. That was a minute. So you keep saying, I don't have time for that. You tell me you don't have time for 1 minute? I just timed it. So that's one practical way. Another practical way, if you're feeling really hot, going into the freezer sometimes and going and touching something really cold. It shocks your body and gets your body to essentially decompress right then and there. So that's another method. Sometimes people like to hold ice because you're feeling hot. You're feeling tension. Tension. Hold some ice. Run your hand under some cold water. Going for a walk, right? Punching some punching bags if you have it at home. Letting all of that negative tension out. Releasing it. So those are some practical ways to deal with anxiety.
Okay, dope.
I hope that those are helpful.
No, 100%. And we just talked about anxiety and now the depression. Okay, so
that's a tough one.
That's a tough one. And for me, I'm constantly learning what it is, right? Because I do believe in a human experience. We're all gonna experience disappointment, heartbreak, just going through different situations in our life. But what is depression? Excellent.
So first, in order to understand what depression is, we have to understand what depression isn't.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So what depression isn't is just feeling sad. You can feel sad and not be depressed. Grief is not depression per se. If you just lost a loved one and your appetite has changed, your sleep patterns have changed, and your motivation, your ability to feel pleasure, having a pessimistic outlook on life, that's related to grief. And especially when we understand grief is culturally bound. Different cultures grieve differently, right? So we as African people, we grieve, I mean, like anybody, but especially in our case, very overtly. We grieve for we can sometimes grieve for a long period of time. That doesn't necessarily mean you're depressed. You just lost a loved one. You're struggling with that. So that's not depression. What now becomes depression? So depression comes from the term deprimer, right? Which means to depress. If people who have a vehicle, they may see in certain vehicles, it will say depress the brakes, push down, right? So it basically means to push down, to be low, right? So it comes from the Latin term deprimer, as I said. And basically what it means is you are at a low state. So low motivation, low energy, low mood, right? Low outlook on life rather than a high and positive outlook on life. So it's experiencing that, all those respective symptoms. So it's basically experiencing low energy as well as these other related symptoms for an extended period of time.
Okay, so that's the
piece.
key point. Okay.
And I like to highlight that the sustained or extended period of time. Some say it's 2 weeks, some say it's a month, some say it's 3 weeks, some say it's 3 days.
Yeah.
There's no scientific explanation. There's no scientific, I guess, consensus. It's more so like a clinical consensus. A lot of psychiatrists are like, 2 weeks sound good.
Yeah.
There's nothing scientific about it. And you can ask any psychiatrist, they'll tell you right now, there's no period where they've studied and it's been 2 weeks. Some it's been 3. Sometimes you only need a week for sustained. But my point is it's for a sustained period of all these respective symptoms happening simultaneously.
Okay.
That is depression. And so that can happen for grief, but it's also related. It basically where it becomes depression is when it's outside of, I guess, natural phenomenon like losing a loved one.
Yes.
However, I want to be clear. Then there's this notion of complicated grief, where complicated grief is essentially a fancy way of saying that grief is starting to seep into the depression territory.
Oh, where it's too long.
It's where it's becoming too long and it's beginning to disrupt. And this is where the other piece when it comes to mental illness, it's disrupting your everyday life, your occupational, social, psychological, educational, physical. It's starting to disrupt your various domains of life.
Okay.
This is where any form of mental illness becomes an issue.
Okay.
Right? And where it basically disrupts your ability to function like a healthy, functioning individual.
Okay.
So that's what depression is when you're experiencing low moods in relation to other respective symptoms for an extended period of time. And it's disrupting your various realms of your overall being.
So correct me if I'm wrong.
Go ahead.
I believe this is what I read.
Yes.
It was along the lines that if you're clinically depressed, you can't necessarily be cured. You just have to regulate it.
That's incorrect.
Okay,
That's incorrect.
So let's talk about it.
Yeah. That's incorrect. And this is what's contributed, I think back to the original point, this was contributed to this miseducation on mental health and illness, and why a lot of young people think it's okay to be depressed because this is going to be indefinite.
Yes.
Right? That's incorrect. Why it's incorrect, but why it's continued to be pushed is because we can face it.
Yeah.
It's a big hustle.
Yeah.
Right? Mental health is a real thing, but it can also be a very big hustle because if you believe that you're just forever going to be depressed, that really limits your ability to succeed in life.
Yes.
Because you're saying, I'm just going to regulate my depression. So you're going to constantly be on antidepressants. You're going to constantly be seeing a psychiatrist or seeing a therapist and all of that.
That they get paid for.
And that they get paid for. Those are real services that can benefit you and do benefit you. So now, and I'll talk about that a bit later. So I'm not saying that's not the issue. I'm in the industry. I'm a therapist. I know it. However, there becomes a matter of a dependency
That's where
situation
the problem comes.
Where the problem comes. So to the point of, can depression be cured? Of course it can. I've seen it myself. How do we cure it? We have to understand what is the root of the issue. The challenge with mental health and illness in today's realm, in comparison to, let's say, back in our days in Africa or back in the days in various parts of Asia. Can't speak for Europe because Europe is where the issues came about. But in Africa and even amongst various indigenous peoples in the Americas, the issue was not the disposition was not to just treat the symptoms. This is what we do nowadays. We're going to treat the symptoms. So we're going to reduce your ability to feel low moods by giving you an SSRI, right? Which is, what's the term? Serotonin. It's a long name inhibitor. Basically, it's to help balance out your serotonin levels. We're going to give you antidepressants. We're going to give you, mood stabilizers. We're going to give you these medications that help to regulate your moods. It doesn't cure the issue.
It doesn't even attack the root problem.
And this is where the psychotherapy comes in. But again, psychotherapy can do it from again, one capacity.
Yeah.
But if we don't sometimes, and this is where the social workers are becoming in high demand, if we don't deal with what is the root issue being, let's say, poverty.
Yeah.
You're depressed because you're poor.
Yeah.
No amount of medication is going to cure that. It may alleviate it, but it's not going to cure it. You are depressed because you're in an abusive relationship. Sometimes the first step to curing, and I use that word and emphasize it, I use it emphatically, is to remove yourself from a certain environment that may be inducing the mental illness to come about.
Facts.
And so what I've seen in my personal experience, I can't speak for all therapists, I've seen people, let's say, who have been depressed because of a certain relationship, right? Or been depressed because of a certain environmental context. Sometimes I'll tell them, is it possible to leave the situation? And they'll say, in some cases, it is. It's going to be tough, but it is. Why don't we start with that?
Yes.
Let's create a plan of how we're going to exit the situation. Sometimes leaving that situation, leaving that neighborhood and going to school in another neighborhood, or leaving that relationship and just being single, the symptoms automatically reduce significantly. And now we can do the work to heal.
Yes.
I can't imagine me trying to heal you while you're still experiencing war.
Yeah.
I'm going to go and give you the tools, and you're going to go back out and see someone's head blown off.
Yeah.
You can't heal when you're constantly still being traumatized. Same thing with depression. When you're talking about depression, sometimes the root of the depressive circumstance is a particular, in some cases, systemic issue, or it's a situational or environmental issue. Remove that person from the environment. It's the same thing with addictions.
Yes.
Remove the person from the environment that's inducing the addiction, and you will see the addiction start to reduce significantly. It has in many ways been proven epidemiologically and even scientifically that environment is a key factor inducing a lot of mental illness. So to that point, to bring it back and summarize, depression, anxiety, a lot of these other respective illnesses can be cured. The ones where it's a bit more debatable are the ones like schizophrenia.
Yes.
Are the ones like bipolar disorder, because there is a very strong biological component. Now, it is argued that there is a strong biological component with depression. However, depression can be regulated and can be in many ways, even if it's not fully cured, it can be 90% reduced.
Like schizophrenia?
No. I'm saying depression can, in comparison to, let's say, schizophrenia, because schizophrenia has a much more multifaceted etiology, and etiology is basically the onset or the understanding of the causation of a disease. Because
I have an aunt that's schizophrenic. Yeah, she's been schizophrenic since 16.
You see what I'm saying? And she honestly was probably schizophrenic from the time she was a child.
Okay.
It's congenital.
Okay.
The thing is, it actually can be.
Okay.
The thing is with schizophrenia is it has a long period of, as they call it, the prodromal period, and what that is it's a period where you have these various symptoms that precede the full onset of the disease. Okay. So it's when they start to withdraw from people. It's when they start to speak in nonsensical ways. They start to do erratic behaviors. It's not full-blown schizophrenia yet, but it's coming up to until you experience a full-blown psychotic episode. So that's when schizophrenia comes about. Depression, similar. It's similar. But the thing is with depression, where, again, just to reiterate, it can be cured. But it also depends on, again, in very few cases, is there a biological component? And so, I mean, that could be a whole nother lecture itself, but I guess the point of the matter is it can be cured. You can treat it and actually come to a situation where you're not depressed or not as depressed. Okay. But to say that you're just forever going to be depressed and basically just doing damage control, I think it's a load of bleep. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Okay, so let's talk about antidepressants, because I'm a person that doesn't really believe in pills and all that. But you know, like, I don't know enough about antidepressants. What do you think about that?
So do I believe that antidepressants are helpful, or
do you believe they're helpful?
Yes. The shorter answer is yes. Okay. I think they can be helpful, but not in isolation, right? So not in a vacuum. What I mean by that is antidepressants can be helpful in conjunction with other respective methods to help you. So yes, the work being, psychotherapy or counseling. Being changing your fitness, right? If you are fit, if you're not fit, be more active, right? Changing your nutrition, A lot of people overlook that. Get more omega-3s into your diet.
Yeah.
Get more vitamin D exposure or more vitamin D rich foods into your diet.
Yeah.
Right? Also doing more annual checkups, because people don't realize that certain physical illnesses do correlate with high risk of developing depression or depressive symptoms. So issues in your liver, issues, for instance, in your iron levels, issues, for instance, in your sugar levels, your blood pressure levels. All of that correlates with your depression. So you can be on antidepressants all you want, but you're eating crappy, right? You could be on antidepressants all you want, but you're living a sedentary life. You're not doing anything. You're not active. So you have to have a holistic view of your health in order to make antidepressants work. Antidepressants can work in the sense of it can help reduce certain symptoms related to depression. It can help increase your mood, but it can be a very acute, meaning a very short and brief fix.
Okay.
And it can be reversed if you're not taking consideration the other parts of your life. Antidepressants can help in bringing up your mood to help motivate you to do the change. Sometimes you need the medication to help stabilize you. However, it takes a long time. In some cases, I think sometimes up to 6 weeks for it to be in full effect for you to actually see the results. So what are you doing in that 6 weeks, right? And then when it comes about, it may come about and you may feel different, but then what about the side effects?
Yeah.
So this is all the pieces that people have to understand when it comes to any form of medication, much less antidepressants and mood stabilizers, which are two of the most, highest grossing, medications in the healthcare industry, right? More than antipsychotics, because everybody's depressed, everybody's anxious.
Yeah.
It's a billion-dollar industry, right? As they call it, big pharma is making a lot of money when it comes to that. So with that being said, though, we don't want to, again, throw away the baby with the bathwater. Antidepressants can be helpful, but there are other more organic ways of engaging in antidepressant effects. Certain foods that we eat. I mean, I'm not a herbalist per se, but those, let's say, who are herbalists, there's certain herbs that can have similar effects as antidepressants.
Yes.
Even the activities that we do can have similar effects as antidepressants. So that's my thoughts on antidepressants. They can be helpful. However, not in isolation of other pieces, basically, of doing the work.
Okay. In our community, it's a little bit, therapy is a little bit of a stigma.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I've heard people say, in peers or people that are acquaintances, that I would never go talk to a therapist, this and that, whatever. Yeah. What do you have to say to that? Right. As one two-part question.
Okay.
And when should people start to consider therapy?
Okay. So in terms of therapy being stigmatized, I think where the stigma comes in is it's how therapy has been presented.
Okay.
Therapy has been presented by white people, for white people, about white people. The methods we've been used have been trained on white people. It's been white. But the notion of, the notion of therapy, even therapy, again, when you look at the etymology, so the root of the word therapy, therapeuy, I think, is the Greek term to describe medicine. So therapy, this is why when they say pharmacotherapy, right, which is medication therapy, this is why when they say massage therapy, aromatherapy, it's medicine to help you heal. You understand what I mean? So therapy, when people say therapy, they're actually using it incorrectly, because therapy itself, it's just medicine. Well, what type of therapy? Yeah. Right? Are we talking psychotherapy? Are we talking pharmacotherapy, massage therapy, etc.? So I just want that, for the viewers to understand that, for one. For two, we have been miseducated on therapy. I'll give you an example. People say, I'm against therapy. I would never talk to someone, but you talk to a pastor. But you talk to your priest. You talk to your imam. Yeah. What's the difference? Be like, well, I know the pastor. I mean, in some cases, no, you don't. Yeah. You don't know what priest is on the other end if you're Catholic. You see what I mean? The issue is, what we don't want to say is we don't want to do therapy because we believe therapy is for white people. Yeah. We believe therapy has been done on white people, and there's some accuracy to that. Yeah. What therapy is it's helping to repair impairments or injuries that have been done psychologically. So what you're trying to do is to help piece together issues that you've experienced in your life that have brought about issues in how you think, how you feel, how you behave, and how even your spirit is intact or not intact. That's what therapy is. Therapy does not have to be that significantly different from, for instance, talking to a pastor and receiving some form of a life coaching, for instance, but in a spiritual way. Therapy, therapy at least is not just about giving you advice. What the pastor will do is give you advice from the Bible. The imam will give you advice from the Quran, right? The rabbi will give you advice from the Torah. What therapy does is, and you can find a faith-based therapist, for instance, where they'll understand the Bible, they'll understand the Quran, but what they'll do is, from a more neutral perspective, get you to go through the process organically to dissect situations that you overlooked before, how it impacted you. Certain thought disorders, and when I say disorder, thoughts that seem incongruent with how you behave, thoughts that seem to be unhelpful for you. So for instance, thinking, oh, I'm never going to succeed in this. Well, why did a pastor may say, you can do this according to this biblical scripture. A therapist will say, tell me more about why you think that. How did that come about? Who taught you that? Where have you seen that mirrored? And what conclusions have you come to yourself when it comes to that? What are some core beliefs? That's what a therapist does, is allows you to reshape and restructure your cognition, your thought pattern. That's going to naturally impact how you express yourself emotionally and how you behave. So back to the stigma. Stigma comes because of how it's presented. It's not presented that way in many cases. So black people are like, I'm not going to no therapist. I'm not white, right? I'm not crazy like them white people. That's what black people will say. And I'm like, and you're right. However, you're right. However, sometimes you can't do everything by yourself. Right? Because you won't go to a therapist, but you go to a physiotherapist. You'll go to a random to come work on your body. Well, I'm feeling the physical pain. And I'm like, but you also but I'm like, suffering that physical pain may also be psychologically originated, right? Sometimes we don't understand how powerful the mind is, that the mind can induce physical pains that may have no medical underlying symptom or medical underlying explanation. That you may experience migraines thinking, oh yeah, I just can pop some pills, but you keep experiencing chronic migraines. That's sometimes an indicator of depression. And an indicator of anxiety. Body ache, same thing. This is what they call psychosomatic. So basically it's issues that originate in the mind that react and influence how the body functions. So when it comes to stigma, that's why I think therapy or psychotherapy is stigmatized in the Black community. The other piece, before we get to the part two, and just remind me of the second part of the question. The other piece when it comes to therapy, and the stigma, is because Black people have been conditioned since enslavement, since colonialism, to be strong. So why on the earth would I talk to a random person about what I'm struggling with when that would naturally suggest that I am weak? I'm not weak. Black people are the strongest people on the planet. It's been proven both scientifically as well as anecdotally. Why would I now succumb to expressing my weaknesses? And again, there's justification to that because we did not have the space to be vulnerable. Back in Africa, before enslavement, before colonialism, there was accounts of men crying. There was accounts of women crying and consoling men, and men consoling women. Vulnerability was a natural part of life. That process was disrupted by colonialism and enslavement. So when we are behaving in this way, thinking this is how we've always been, that's incorrect. And so the stigma comes, and it's multifaceted because it's presented in one way by white people, and we don't want to be anything near white people. But on the flip side, it's also incongruent with how we've been socialized, which is to be strong. So that's the stigma with mental health. Now, in terms of therapy, remind me of your second part of your question.
I believe it was, when do we know?
When do we know it's appropriate to start seeking therapy? So I guess the technically correct answer would be when you feel like, basically when you feel, as I talked about that prodromal period, when you're starting to feel overwhelmed, when you feel like you have a lot of things that you can't really process with other people's who are going to be neutral. You may not want to tell your boys because they're going to just tell you things as your boys. Biased, right? You don't want to tell your parents because maybe the issue is with your parents, right? So when you're looking for a neutral party that's going to not just give you advice, because maybe you don't want to talk to your pastor because you don't really want it solely from a spiritual perspective or that respective's perspective. Maybe you want it from a Black therapist who has background in the spirituality, but it's not going to just bring up the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? You may not want to hear a biblical scripture, but you may want to hear how this relates to God or Jesus or Prophet Muhammad or whomever. And so basically you go to a therapist when you start to feel like you're losing track of what your purpose in life is. You're losing momentum in your life, and you're starting to feel like you're losing, I guess, control of certain things in your life, and you feel like you don't really have much people to talk to process all that stuff with.
Okay.
That's when I feel like a therapist would probably be helpful, just to help you get through some of that stuff. Same thing also when you feel like your family's in disarray, feel like communication issues are out of whack, and you've exhausted all other options, right? I always like to say, make sure you exhaust other options. Therapy can be a first resort.
Yeah.
Everybody has different prerogatives, but it doesn't have to be.
Okay.
Try to exhaust other options, work with your family members, work with your spouse, work with your son, your daughter, whomever, work with your parent. And when you feel like we're just not seeing eye to eye, and it doesn't seem like we have the ability or the expertise to work through some of the issues that may be present, maybe we need a third party to help us reveal some of these issues and give us some more tools to use to rectify some of our issues. The goal needs to be, how do we treat this issue, not how do we engage in damage control.
Okay.
I want that to be clear. You want to treat the issue and try to resolve it, not just live a less chaotic life. There's a difference between trying to eliminate chaos versus just trying to live a less chaotic life.
Okay.
We don't want to just reduce symptoms. We want to remove the issue.
Yes.
You feel me? So that's when I would say a therapy would be probably helpful. Family, group, individual, couples, parent, child, etc.
Okay. So in our generation, we have access to a lot more information.
Yes.
And I feel like a lot of peers, acquaintances, like we're starting to do the work.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And
correct.
a lot of us come from a Caribbean household.
Yes.
And I noticed that a lot of us still have parent hurt.
Yes.
Of how they grew up. They may have a lot of resentment towards their parents.
Agreed.
Right?
Yep.
And I notice, although they're doing the work, they're still seeking that validation or that closure from their parents.
Yes.
What do you have to say about that?
I'm so happy you brought that up, because that has been one of the number one, like as I try to keep statistics of like some of the issues that are present or that are presenting concerns amongst my clients. Cause again, 99.9% of my clientele is Black, right? And that's one of the number one issues that I've seen is, I guess, not long-standing issues or resentment towards their parents, right? Sometimes their grandparents.
Yeah.
And so what I've said in session, what I'll say to people here listening is, you have to modify your expectations.
Yeah, that's what I say.
Of your parents.
Yeah.
You have to do it.
They didn't have the same tools.
No, for one, they didn't have the same tools.
Yeah.
For two, you're trying to change a grown 55, 60, 65-year-old person, 40-year-old person.
A lot of wiring.
That's a lot of wiring. And it's not going to happen. Like it sounds, people say, no, never say never. No, biologically and scientifically, it's not going to happen. And even spiritually, they are stuck in their ways.
Yeah.
In those cases, it may not be about treating the issue because the issue is already firmed up.
Yeah.
The personality technically is done for, the personality is technically done forming by 12.
Yeah.
Right? And you still have some leeway up until 18. And you have a bit more leeway until up to 25 because your prefrontal cortex is not fully developed until you're 25. After 25, a lot of it's now just damage control and reducing issues, but you're not going to change that person. You can change a 7-year-old. You can change it. Even if it's not 100%, you could change them 90%. You can even change a 13-year-old. You can even somewhat change a 19-year-old. That's why there's a lot of work even done on college campuses of the conscious raising. A lot of revolutions were done with the young people in the college and university campuses because their brains are still malleable, right? So you could still evoke change. They still had a lot of issue or a lot of preceding thoughts, but you can still alter them. Trying to do that with a 35-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 70-year-old. My gosh, right? So I think our people have to begin modifying their expectations, not removing expectations, modifying them. So what do I mean by that? Here's an example. Your mom is all about mix up. Every time you talk to her, she's just trying to create some mix up. She's trying to come for you for this. She's trying to come for you for that. What do? Do you keep reacting to it? No. Why? Because that's your mother.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's accepting who your parent is.
Yeah.
We sometimes don't want to do it. We don't want to accept that our parent, unfortunately, has developed a bad pattern of being antagonistic.
Yes.
We don't want to accept that our father is a very authoritarian, strong iron fist individual, and that's not going to change. You're trying to get him to be more passive. He's 70 years old. He's 60 years old. He's been ruling with an iron fist since he has been growing up, since he's been 12. You're not changing him.
Yeah.
What you have to do is begin to modify and accept who your father is, modify your expectations of him. So what that looks like, for instance, for your father or for your mother is when, let's say, they want to be antagonistic. You set your respective boundary. I always say, because I'm old school. I'm all about respecting your elders, but at the same time, not allowing disrespect to occur. Exactly. So there's that bit of that modern implementation. Those are your elders. So no, we're not going to get into this white behavior of I'm going to tell my mama what it is. Man, you're not Caucasian. Let the white people do that, right? We're black people. We respect our elders, right? That's created mix up for them, disrespecting their elders. Look at how they treat their older people in nursing homes, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But when it comes to we as African people, that's still your mother. So you can tell your mother, listen, mommy, I don't appreciate every time I'm trying to talk to you, you're always trying to bring problems. I respect you, but you're not going to bring that to me. They're going to say, you're disrespecting. No, mommy, I love you. You're keeping a cool, calm, and collective. Yeah. I love you, mommy, but you're not going to come to me that. And if she doesn't listen, okay, mommy, I'm going to talk to you when you're ready. I'm going to step away. You've accepted that's who your mother is. Yeah. So you're expecting that she's going to behave like that. It's going to infuriate you. You want to have an outlet for it. It goes back to what we talked about. But at the same time, now you have eliminated the inclination to become angry at something that is been ongoing. So that's an example. When it comes to your father, you expect he's going to be authoritarian. Every time you talk to him, nothing's going to please him. So you have to now adjust what you expect his reaction to be when you tell him, hey, I just got a promotion. He may be like, okay, do you run the company yet? That's going to infuriate you if you haven't modified your expectation. You could be, what the, bro, it's never enough for this guy. Instead, you got to be like, well, Dad, everything's a process. And you have to go in there not expecting him to be proud of you in the traditional sense.
Exactly.
But you're going in there just saying, well, you're my father. I just want to inform you. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool. All right, cool. Thanks, Pops. We've modified it. It's a difference. You come out there, you're going to still be swinging, be like, oh, my dad is so annoying, bro. Ray. But that anger is going to slowly subside because you're going to have to tell yourself concurrently, that's my dad. Yeah. That's who he is. I have to accept that. Yeah. It's work I've had to do. It's work I've had clients have to do. It's work I've had my wife do. It's work I've had to teach cousins and family members. I've done lectures on. You have to modify your expectations for your parents because, as you said, they didn't have the tools and the environment was different. And so you also have to have a bit of empathy. Yes. Because we have the expectation that our parents had the tools that we have now. That's incorrect. Yeah. The survival environment that they had was much different. That was harsh. Was harsh in a different way than we have now. You feel me? Yes. So anyway, that elaborate answer, I think, hopefully answers that.
Okay, amazing. So I have a Chris Rock clip that I want to play, and I want you to give me your thoughts on it.
Sounds good.
I'm gonna give you right now.
Okay.
Just press play.
Sure.
Only women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. A man is only loved under the condition that he provides something, okay? I once heard my grandmother say, a broke man is like a broke hand. Can't do nothing with it. What kind of gangster shit is that? That's right. Women, children, and dogs are loved unconditionally. When you meet a new girl, what do your friends ask you? What she look like? Lady, when you meet a new guy, what do your friends ask you? What does he do? What the fuck does that nigga do that can help you out? Can this motherfucker facilitate a dream or not?
That's real. That's pretty.
Okay. So I brought that clip up because I as being black men, and
Yes.
for me, I'm single. I just feel like with social media, just the way that we live, there's so much pressures that we don't talk about because there's such a unrealistic expectation that's coming from the masses right now, society right now. And that clip kind of describes a lot. So what do you think? And what do you think about that?
Excellent. So, you know, as much as, you know, it was humorous and I laugh because, there's a lot of truth to that. However, I don't think it's a new phenomenon.
Okay.
I was watching the movie John Q, right? So it's with Denzel, and basically it's a movie, if you know, for people who don't know, it's a movie where he was going to the ends of the earth and basically holding hostages to ensure his son received the medical treatment that he required. And what people may overlook is that behavior was induced because of a conversation he had with his wife, who said, John, you better do something. The expectation was, you are a man, fix this problem.
Get it done.
Get it done. And so it almost kind of aligns with the conditionality of how we treat our men. And before people want to jump, hear me out. What what we don't look at is our sisters in many ways do call us higher because we say, I'm gonna get it done. And some of the sisters are like, get it done now. We need you to protect us, right? And so it can feel very pressured because that's a lot of pressure. And why I say it's not a new phenomenon is because how do you think we got out of slavery? A lot of the revolts were done by black men. Who do you think
was pressuring
them? Imagine you're coming home and the woman that you love is being brutalized by the slave master. You think she's sitting there asking you to just wait till God puts his hand out there and
get something done.
She's saying, get something done. You want him to keep doing this to me? You want him to do this to your daughter? You want him to do this to your son? Get it done. So the men were like, okay, we got to get this done. Colonization, they said, you're going to keep letting them disrespect us like this? They have us working these mines, working with these white women who mistreated. You're going to keep letting them do this to us? Now, not to say women weren't doing revolts themselves. They were, right? However, a lot of it was done by the men because, again, the traditional aspect, men were always doing the physical brunt of the work.
Yes.
So the pressure has always been there.
Okay.
Where I think the difference, though, in current times is, I would say, the level of, I want to say, I guess, the level of reciprocity. Because on one hand, a lot of men are fearful of the pressure of having to, let's say, be the providers of their families, for their families. And again, even the understanding of provider is very limited. We've understood providing being only financial. And then some men have come and say, well, what are these sisters doing? Because, and I've seen it both ways. Some men want a traditional woman, but they don't want to be a traditional man. Some women want a traditional man. They don't want to be a traditional woman. You want the man to protect you, but you don't want to cook, clean, take care of the kids, do this, do that. But you want the man to be taking care of all of that and some. Just like with the man wants the woman to be a traditional woman, but he's economically unstable. He doesn't want to be present. He doesn't know how to take care of himself. He doesn't know how to fix nothing. So I think there's an incongruence with how men and women are operating. But in Chris Rock's time, there was a bit more of those traditional values in place. Okay. And so I guess my concluding thoughts with that would be, it is a lot of pressure. And especially when he's talking about in his time, he grew up during, segregation, right? He grew up during the Jim Crow era. Where the issue is oppression was nuanced for black men differently than it was for black women. Sure. And so what black men, there was a lot of pressure from the woman to do what you're supposed to do. And the pressure seemed conditional because the woman was stressed out of her mind. And she's like, I'm here taking care of the kids. I'm here doing this and doing that. And so out of survival, grandma's going to tell her, if he can't do nothing for you, you might as well just take care of yourself, because in this climate, we don't have time to be taking care of no more dependents. And the man wants to do what he wants to do, but racism and oppression has limited his options, right? During the Jim Crow era, you can only get certain jobs and easily be replaced by a white person. In today's day and age, with miseducation, a lot of black men are coming in are coming out with higher dropout rates, higher unemployment rates, and Black women have these expectations for these men to be men, but a lot of these men are so dejected, it's hard to be a man. So the pressure becomes very tough because you want to be the man that you want to be, but you don't have the resources to be that man. And then the women, because of survival, are like, well, I'm sorry, but I can only love you conditionally because I don't know what you're going to do for me to survive. So that elaborate explanation gives some context, in my opinion.
Okay.
As to why we are in this day and age. Now, on top of that, we also have the influence of Western understandings of masculinity, which is a big issue because it's distorted what it means to be a man.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, toxic masculinity, I don't know why people haven't said it, is European masculinity. When you look at the definition of toxic masculinity, masculinity is not toxic. But the definition of what it means to be toxically masculine, a lot of it correlates with what European men are. Right? So that's a whole nother discussion, but I hope that gives some explanation into that.
100%. So here's another thing. I feel cancel culture is a big thing these days, right?
Lord have mercy. Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
And sometimes, even myself, like I have some outlandish opinions on certain things that go on, right? But these days I'm like, oh man, I can't even say this online. Jeez. And I feel like when it comes to like mental health, luckily I have people that I can express these things to. But for the person that can't, this could be very detrimental to someone's mental health because we're not even allowing people to say their opinion. So
it's outlandish. It's ridiculous.
They don't even have the chance to be corrected or even just say how they feel. And this could be, like I said, detrimental to one's mental health. What do you have to say about that?
I agree. I'm not a fan of cancel culture. I can't stand it. I mean, I think there are parameters, there are exceptions to the rule. If someone says something outright racist, outright sexist, you know, even outright anti-LGBTQ, right? And they just call somebody and we're not talking about people interpreting something as anti-LGBTQ or sexist. We're talking just outright outlandish, like, these people are
whatever
pejorative, right? But that's different, because you know, they're clearly letting you know what their thoughts are on this individual. But where the issue comes is when people are misinterpreting people's thoughts on a particular issue. So if people, let's say, are, saying, for instance, that they don't believe, I don't know, that the way feminism, let's say, has been presented, and they believe that some women are given contradicting messages on what they want, to go and cancel them. What are you doing?
That's crazy.
If anything, you're now confirming what they're saying. Canceling them because they're given an opinion that is not overtly sexist. They're just given an opinion that may need some explanation, may need some clarification. Allow that to organically unfold.
And allow them to learn.
Allow them to learn if they need to learn, but allow yourself to learn on what perspective they have.
100%.
When it comes to now mental health, you know, or when it comes to, I guess, how that impacts somebody cancel culture wise when they've been canceled, you're right. It isolates them. It can blackball them. And we're not talking, again, the people who are explicit, you know, bigots in whatever capacity. I don't care for them, right? I'm talking to people who are saying things that they were either miseducated on or they were just saying their opinion on certain things, and now we're canceling them. Like what's happened to Kanye West. Don't get me started on what's happened to Kanye West or Kyrie Irving, right? No, you know, in my opinion, they did not say anything that was blatantly, or I take that back. Kanye West, he teetered the lines, right? The Kyrie situation, though,
because people don't understand.
And what he was saying, however, you know, I mean, there's some accuracy to that, right? And so, with that being said, and you know, people may want to say, I'm going to cancel David. That's fine. That's your opinion, right? However, we also have to call a spade, right? There are some facts to what certain individuals are saying about certain things, and then to now go and cancel them and isolate them. But not take them aside and say, hey, listen, you didn't have to say it like this. You should have said it like this. Help guide them. If they're resistant to that, that's different. But a lot of times we're not even giving them the opportunity.
The chance. We're already bashing their name.
And then and how are people supposed to grow?
Exactly.
Right. And that's my thing is like, if you want people to grow, unless you're saying something completely outlandish, you have to be a bit more patient with them.
Yeah.
It may not be your job to, let's say, to educate them. Maybe you don't want to be the one to educate them. Maybe you're tired of that. Fine. However, don't be so quick to just rule them out.
Yeah.
Find an opportunity to, or find a way to, let's say, ask for clarity.
Fair.
And say, what did you mean by that? Rather than just saying, yeah, you're canceled. I'm not buying your music no more.
Okay, because
that's my opinion.
So I'm just gonna say it. This is Black is Newish podcast, and
go
we
ahead,
just let things fly. So maybe a month ago, there was an actor. The actor that's in Creed, the new Creed movie with Michael B. Jordan. The other one.
Yes.
I'm not sure his name.
Hold on, Jonathan Majors.
Okay,
I think is his name. Yeah.
So he was on a cover. I believe for the Ebony magazine, and he was dressed up in pink, and his legs were crossed, and his lips were puckered as like a female would.
Yes.
And the post was something about masculinity, and my thoughts were like, for the heterosexual male, right? Why is it always black men that are dressing up in dresses or like perceiving to be more feminine? And some people are just coming for me like, I don't even like the buff men anyway. You should stop saying that and let men express themselves the way they want to express themselves.
Foolishness,
But my thing is, I doubt that I would see Tom Brady dressed up in a dress. I doubt that, or any white pro big athletes dressed up in a dress or doing feminine things. But it's always the black man. That was my point. And I don't know. My DMs were getting crazy.
So here's the thing. You know, people can say what they want, but there always has been, again, and I go away from the detractors and I go straight to the history, right? Historically, there has always been an agenda to emasculate black men.
Yes, that was the title. Something emasculating our black men.
Yes, period. There's always been, for people to argue that they're clearly ignorant of history. There has always been, especially in the United States, right? In Canada, it's a bit differently nuanced. However, there is in many ways there's a bit of an overspill of that same agenda to emasculate black men. Just like the other side of it is to emasculate or masculinize the black woman. If you think about it.
Exactly.
Black women are not allowed to be feminine.
Yeah, exactly.
Black women
they always have to be tough. Single moms.
And that is incorrect. Arab women don't go with that.
Yeah.
You see a lot of Arab women who are allowed to be feminine and allowed to cry and allowed to show vulnerability. Chinese women, same thing. White women are the epitome, right? Indian women, same thing. So when it comes to black men, first and foremost, there is an agenda to emasculate black men, 100%. Secondly, what I've noticed, when a lot of people want to justify and condone black men being in dresses, black men being, in some form of feminine gear, and saying, oh, what about the men who are trans? What about men who are cross-dressers? For me, I don't business. Let them do them.
Okay.
But my issue is they have internalized a European understanding of gender and sexuality, right? Because when we look back in the day, some people love to point out, oh, we're making it seem like there weren't, let's say, trans people in Africa. First and foremost, in Africa, even when there were situations, let's say, where African men were more effeminate than masculine, if that was the case, for instance, people love to talk about Uganda, right? You have to notice stuff in order to be able to engage in these debates. People love to talk about Uganda and how there were, gay black men walking hand in hand and how they were rulers of tribes, etc. And that may be accurate. However, the foundation of society was still heterosexuality, right? Man and woman to procreate. That's just biologically how the world continues to progress, right? I'm fully against persecuting somebody who wants to dress in feminine gear.
Me too.
I'm completely against, and I think that's important for the viewers to know, for the both of us. I'm completely against any sort of bigotry against those who identify in the LGBTQ spectrum. Completely against it. I do not condone. I think anybody who does it has issues. being okay with there being this consistency of strong masculine black men told to tone down their I guess you could say their toughness.
The intentions are unclear.
The intentions are unclear. And so the way I look at it, is that what the white power structure is fearful of, and what they've always been fearful of, are those very strong, not only physically strong, but psychologically and intellectually strong black men to be aggressive against the system. But it's not been the same for black women. To be honest, the white power structure is not fearful of strong black women. They don't like it. You know what they're actually fearful of? Feminine black women. Because feminine black women, allowing black women, and feminine black women does not mean submissive, but feminine black women means allowing black women to just be in their femininity. And allowing black men to be in their masculinity. There is power in femininity. There's power in masculinity. The complementary relationship is beautiful.
Yes.
And allowing and making sure that they support the black man, not trying to compete with their black man. There is power in that. And white power structure doesn't want that. So what they did,
they flipped it.
They said, you know what? Let's flip out. Let's flip the gender roles and completely disfragment the community. And so that's when it comes to Jonathan Major situation. It's all about trying to normalize and socialize the young black men. That's okay to put on a dress. Again, it's insidious. It's not about the dress.
Exactly.
It's not about the dress. It's about the messaging that when a black man look in schools, when a young black boy vocalizes his issues, he's constantly castigated aside. He's constantly reprimanded and told to be quiet. And then compared to, look at the young black boy who's so quiet. Look at the young black man who's a more effeminate. He's raised up. The more aggressive and a more powerful black man. It's supposed to be feared. It's supposed to be feared. And so what you do is you continue to emasculate him to get him to be more quiet and more humble. And what you're doing is you're trying to essentially flip the roles. But then the black woman, you tell them, this black woman's so strong. You see how insidious the messages are? You don't say that about the black man. You say about the black woman. The black woman's so strong. Nothing's untouched. She's so untouchable. So you teach you miseducate black women to be strong. And then you say, the black woman, he's too aggressive. He's too strong. You reduce him. Now you have a lopsided community. And look at what's happening to the white community. White woman and white man been fighting. Right? They're trying to do the same thing with black men and black women. And so I'm against it. I'm all for it. However, for me, a client is a client. If you come to me and you're trans, if you come to me and you're gay, I'm treating you. You are you are my brother. You are my sister. You are in this community. There's a variety of reasons of why certain things have happened in your life that have influenced how you think, feel, and believe. I'm going to treat that. However, if people think, it's okay for a boy to wear a dress, I'm like, that's debatable. Right? In my opinion, that's debatable. Now, if you want to go and compare lastly to, what about the garments that we wore back in Africa? That was differently social. That was differently perceived. It weren't dresses per se. And there was firm roles between men and women. So that clearly was an elaborate answer, but I wanted to make it clear because I think we as African people have to be very careful of what
media we indulge in
and what definitions of sexuality, of gender orientation, and all of that we have induced into us. Because people who are thinking that's okay don't realize they're playing into the European construct. Just like those who are hyper masculine and think you have to only be tough and not show vulnerability are playing into the European mantra of masculinity. So both sides are incorrect.
100% I agree. Boom. Great answer.
There we go. Thank you. I want to be very clear.
Okay, so how can we, as I guess, I would say more men, how can we normalize just being more vulnerable and speaking about our issues?
Like how, like basically what are the first steps?
Each other. Like with each other. Like how can we normalize this thing? Because in our friend groups, like growing up, it wasn't normal. Right? So how can we start to like normalize these type of things?
Excellent. I think what may need to occur is first surveilling which of your friends would be open to having that dialogue.
Fair.
Not every one of your friends is there. You have some brothers who, unfortunately, again, in speaking of European masculinity, are still about, what? Yo, this guy's a weak.
You're
you know,
soft.
He's soft. Yo, he's soft, right?
Yeah.
Other words to describe how soft you are for talking about your feelings.
Yep.
They're not ready. You modify your expectations.
Yes.
Right?
Same thing.
You see what I mean?
So,
But you may have one or two friends that really checks in on you. He's like, yo, Corey, fam, I've noticed you've been quieter these days. Yo, you're good? Mm-hmm. That may be a brother that you may be like, listen, can I keep it a buck with you? Yeah. And you ask, listen, can I keep it a buck with you? Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course, fam. You know, we're brethren. Okay. Bro, honestly, I've just been really overwhelmed recently. Bro, I've been anxious, fam. Like, I've had this project, I've had this. You know, I got to take care of this. Bro, I don't know if I can do it. Oh, shoot, bro. I didn't know all of that was going on. That's where the starting point is.
Okay.
You have to first surveil the friends that you believe can actually be, I guess you could say, open enough to hearing what you're saying, and you feel vulnerable enough. It's going to take a leap of faith. There's no easy answer. It's going to take a leap of faith. You may choose wrong.
Yeah.
Think, I think he's good. You disclose, he'd be like, yo, what's wrong with you, bro? You're Gucci.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean now you say, see, this is why I never open up to people. No, you have to go in and modify your expectations of what will happen.
Yeah.
So you may go in and get a sense of rejection. Mm-hmm. You have to go back, get angry about it, process the emotion and say, okay, maybe I look outside of my peer group. Maybe you have another friend that you're like, you know what? Maybe I try him, right? Mm-hmm. You're going to find somebody that you talk to that is open enough, right? But to be honest, there are guys out there that are open to it. Even some of the most gangster guys. I've seen sessions. I've dealt with guys who have done hard time, guys who've been gangbangers and all that. And to be honest, I see some of them bring their friends into their therapy sessions. And they'll talk and be like, yo, on some real talk, man, bro, I was depressed when my girl broke up with me and she kept my child away from me. And his homie's just like, yo, it's all good, man. And they may, you could tell they want to be vulnerable, and he'll just kind of bunks him with his shoulder and be like, yo, it's all good. Yeah. He wants to put his arm around him, but he's like, I gotta still be masculine. Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's where it starts. You have to really figure out which friends are open to that. And then the ones that aren't, you then modify how you present in front of them. It's not about suppressing your emotions in front of them, but you just know when to show it and when not to, right? Suppression is when you just put it all in and never express it.
Yes.
You just have to know and be able to discern who can I express it to, who can I not. And in terms of how do we get there? I ask men when it comes to this, are you a human being? And they say yes. And I say, if you're a human being, human beings express emotion. If you don't believe that you need to express emotion, then I question if you're a human being.
Yeah.
I keep it as simple as that. And they say, well, of course. Well, and I'm like, show me a time in history. I don't care. Give me any revolutionary figure and show me a time where they didn't express their emotion. And the ones that didn't, show me the trajectory of their life.
Yeah, exactly.
I say, show me the trajectory of their life. Malcolm X is a beautiful example. He suppressed so much because he had a certain objective. But near the time of his death, he was experiencing heavy paranoia. He was experiencing depression. He was experiencing such internal turmoil that he was going, if he didn't die, who knows if he would have ended up in a psych ward.
Yeah.
He was under so much pressure, but he had very few people to talk to. And he only started to open up to a few people near the end of his death.
Yeah.
What we don't want to wait that long. Martin Luther King was heavily depressed.
Yeah, because his last speaking engagement, you can see his face.
He was so
distraught,
right? Marcus Garvey, right? Also was very distraught. Apparently, he died from a physical illness. I think that also had to do with his depressive instinct because he was losing so much. He was deported.
Yeah.
He was losing so much relationships with people. He lost his wives. I think, his last wife, I think, was Amy Garvey. But before that, his wives left him. He was so isolated, but he suppressed so much. So I asked him, do you want that to happen to you? You want to die a premature death? They're like, nah, bro, I don't. Because all them guys you look up to, some of their pitfalls was emotional suppression. Environment-wise, they had to unfortunately tread lightly.
Yeah.
But at the same time, they did have the opportunity to outlet it. But unfortunately, European masculine indoctrination told them, I just got to be strong.
Yes.
So what I say is in how to take back that power, you have to see power in vulnerability. You have to see power in expressing yourself. Emotions are not supposed to be the answers to the issues. They're just supposed to be an indication of how the situation affects you. That's the purpose of emotions. What you do with those, what you do as a result of what emotions you experience is up to you. And that's where the psychological piece, you formulate the thoughts and therefore the actions thereafter. But the emotion is just to indicate, how is the situation affecting me? Why am I so angry? Well, it's because of this, this, and that. So what do? Now you use your reasoning skills, your abstract reasoning skills. Well, in order to not have to experience this, maybe I should do this. That is what emotion is supposed to do. It's supposed to be the catalyst to change. It is not the change itself.
Yes.
Emotions are the catalyst to change, but they're not the change itself. I want that to be very clear.
Wow. Okay, David, that was another packed interview. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, my pleasure.
There's so much gems. There's so much reels I'm going to cut up from this.
Thank you, brother.
A lot of reels from it. But before you leave, I want to I want you to let the people know where to contact you again.
Excellent. So you can contact me on Instagram, Global Mind Emancipation. I mean, that's a very long name to spell, but Global Mind and then Emancipation, no spaces. You can feel free to shoot me an email, david.jay.grant. So david.j.grant.9, the number 9 @gmail.com. Or you can email me on my business email, info@globalmindemancipation.org. You can add me on LinkedIn. You can even add my work number, 647-794-0966. I'm open to answering any questions about the mental health system, about mental health and illness, any of those sorts. I'm here for you guys. I'm at your disposal. Africa for Africans, and I'm all about Black people. So
amazing.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
My pleasure. Yes, sir.
Cheese.
Black on black. If I studied that facts on facts.